The prison ship moved through the darkness of space like a silent predator. Inside its metal walls, the air was cold and smelled of recycled oxygen and fear. Jiwan walked down the narrow corridor, his medical bag heavy in his hand. This was his first day aboard the Eternal Verdict, and he was already regretting his decision to take this job. The other crew members barely looked at him as he passed. A few gave him disgusted glances. One spat on the floor near his feet. Jiwan kept walking. He had expected this. Humans were still new to the Galactic Coalition, and most alien species saw them as weak and too emotional. They thought humans had no business working on a prison ship that carried the galaxy's most dangerous criminals. Captain Vok was waiting for him in the command center. The Threxian had 4 muscular arms and skin that looked like rough stone. 2 of his eyes focused on Jiwan, while the other 2 watched the monitors around them. "You are the human medic," Vok said. It was not a question. "Yes, sir. My name is Jiwan. I do not care about your name. I care if you can do your job without crying or running away." Vok's voice was rough, like grinding rocks. "This ship carries 73 prisoners. Most of them would kill you just for entertainment. You will check their health once per week. You will not talk to them. You will not show them kindness. You will treat their injuries only if I approve. Do you understand?" Jiwan nodded. "I understand the rules, sir." "Good. There is one prisoner you need to know about." Vok turned to a screen and pressed a button. An image appeared. It showed a female creature with pale skin covered in scars. She had long dark hair and bright amber eyes that seemed to glow even in the photograph. "This is prisoner 4719. Her species calls her Rena. We call her a monster." "What species is she?" Jiwan asked. "Velkari." Vok said the word like it was poison. "Her kind destroyed 3 colony worlds. They killed millions before we hunted them down. She is one of the last of her species. We keep her in the lowest level of the ship in maximum containment. She wears 4 layers of shackles. The restraints limit her strength and movement." Jiwan looked at the image. The creature looked thin and tired. Her wrists were red and raw, where the shackles cut into her skin. "Has she hurt anyone on this ship?" "Not yet. But she killed 17 guards at other facilities. We feed her through automated systems. No one goes near her cell. No one talks to her. You will check her vital signs from outside the containment unit, using the remote scanners. Is that clear?" "Yes, sir." Vok dismissed him with a wave of 2 arms. "Start your rounds on the upper levels. Work your way down. And, human, do not do anything stupid. Your kind always thinks they can save everyone. You cannot save these creatures. They are here because they are beyond saving." Jiwan left the command center and began his work. The upper levels held prisoners who had committed smaller crimes. Thieves, smugglers, hackers. They were kept in standard cells with basic restraints. Most of them ignored Jiwan as he scanned their health readings. A few tried to threaten him. One attempted to grab him through the food slot in the door. But Jiwan stepped back in time. By the end of his shift, he was exhausted. But there was one more level to visit. The lowest level, where they kept prisoner 4719. Jiwan took the elevator down. The temperature dropped as he descended. The lights became dimmer. When the doors opened, he found himself in a corridor with only one door at the end. 2 guards stood outside it. They were both Krovar, a species that looked like walking armored tanks. "You the human medic?" one of them asked. "Yes. Use the scanner from out here. Do not open the door. Do not get close to the glass. Do not talk to it." Jiwan walked to the door. There was a control panel on the wall with a medical scanner. Through the thick reinforced glass, he could see inside the cell. It was a small room with metal walls and a single dim light. In the corner, curled into a tight ball, was Rena. She was smaller than Jiwan had expected. The image on the screen had made her look larger and more threatening. In reality, she looked like someone who had been hurt many times and was trying to make herself as small as possible. The shackles on her wrists and ankles were connected by heavy chains to the walls. She could barely move. Ji-won activated the scanner. It beeped as it read her vital signs. Heart rate elevated. Blood pressure high. Multiple lacerations on wrists and ankles from the restraints. Signs of malnutrition. The scanner listed a dozen other problems. He looked through the glass again. Rena had not moved. Her face was hidden in her arms, but Ji-won could see her shoulders shaking slightly. Was she cold? Or crying? Finished? One of the guards asked behind him. Almost, Ji-won said. Then he did something he knew he should not do. He pressed the intercom button on the wall. "Hey, what are you doing?" the guard shouted. Ji-won ignored him. He spoke into the intercom. "Hello. My name is Ji-won. I am the new medic. I am checking to make sure you are healthy." Rena did not move, did not respond. But Ji-won saw one of her ears twitch slightly. "I can see that your shackles are hurting you. I will try to get you some medicine for that." Still no response. The guards were arguing behind him about whether to report this. Ji-won knew his time was running out. He stepped closer to the glass and did something that made the guards go silent. He placed his hand against the glass. Palm, flat. Fingers spread. A gesture of peace, of acknowledgement, of seeing her as more than just a monster in a cage. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, Rena lifted her head. Her amber eyes met his through the glass. They were filled with pain and suspicion, but also something else. Surprise, maybe. Or curiosity. They stared at each other for several seconds. Then Rena slowly uncurled from her defensive position. She did not stand. She did not move toward the glass, but she sat up straighter, and she kept her eyes on Ji-won. "I will come back tomorrow," Ji-won said quietly, "to check on you again." He removed his hand from the glass and stepped back. The guards immediately grabbed his arms and pulled him away from the door. "You are insane," one of them said. "Captain Vok will hear about this." "I am sure he will," Ji-won replied calmly. As they dragged him to the elevator, Ji-won looked back one more time. Rena was still sitting up, still watching him, and for the first time since he had arrived on this ship, Ji-won felt like he had done something right. That night, Ji-won was called to Captain Vok's office. The Threxian was furious. "You spoke to the Velkari. You touched her containment unit. You violated 3 safety protocols. I used the intercom as designed. I did not open the door. I simply introduced myself to a patient. She is not a patient. She is a dangerous criminal." "She is both," Ji-won said. "And, according to Coalition Medical Code, every prisoner has the right to basic medical care and dignity." Vok's 4 eyes narrowed. "You think your human ideas about dignity matter here? I think they should matter everywhere." For a moment, Ji-won thought Vok might throw him off the ship. But instead, the captain leaned back in his chair and laughed. It was not a happy sound. "Fine, human. Check on your monster every day if you wish. But when she kills you, do not expect anyone to be surprised." Ji-won left the office and returned to his quarters. As he lay in his bed that night, he thought about those amber eyes watching him through the glass, about the way she had uncurled from her defensive ball when he showed her a simple gesture of kindness. Everyone kept calling her a monster. But Ji-won had worked with enough patience to recognize pain when he saw it. And Rena was not a monster. She was someone who had been treated like one for so long that she had learned to hide herself away. Tomorrow, he would visit her again. And the day after that. And the day after that. Because if there was one thing humans were good at, it was being stubborn about doing what was right, even when everyone else said it was stupid. Ji-won closed his eyes and smiled. This was going to be an interesting assignment after all. 3 weeks had passed since Ji-won first arrived on the Eternal Verdict. Every day, he completed his rounds on the upper levels, checking on the regular prisoners. And every day, he ended his shift by visiting the lowest level where Rena was kept. The guards no longer tried to stop him from using the intercom. They had reported him to Captain Vok multiple times, but the captain had decided to allow it. Perhaps Vok thought it was entertaining to watch a human waste his time talking to a creature that never responded. Or perhaps he was curious to see how long it would take before Jiwon gave up. But Jiwon did not give up. He talked to Rena every day. He told her about Earth, about the blue oceans and green forests. He described the smell of rain and the feeling of grass under bare feet. He talked about his family, his reasons for joining the medical corps, his favorite foods. Sometimes he just told her about his day. Rena never spoke back. But Jiwon noticed small changes. She no longer curled into a defensive ball when he arrived. Instead, she would sit near the glass, her amber eyes watching him as he talked. Sometimes her head would tilt slightly when he said something interesting. Once, he thought he saw the corner of her mouth move, almost like the beginning of a smile. The other crew members thought he was crazy. They whispered about him in the hallways. The human who talks to monsters. The fool who thinks kindness matters. But Jiwon ignored them. He had seen too many patients in his career, both human and alien, who had been labeled as difficult or dangerous simply because no one had bothered to treat them with respect. One morning, Jiwon noticed something wrong. As he approached Rena's cell, he could see fresh blood on the floor. She was sitting in her usual spot near the glass, but her wrists were bleeding worse than normal. The shackles had cut deep into her skin, and the wounds looked infected. Jiwon immediately scanned her vitals. The infection was spreading. If left untreated, it could become serious, even for a Valkyrie with their strong healing abilities. He went straight to Captain Vok's office. Prisoner 4719 needs medical treatment. Her restraints have caused infected wounds. I need to enter her cell and treat them properly. Vok did not even look up from his datapad. Valkyrie. Heal quickly. The infection will clear on its own. Valkyrie. 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 Have to the Valkyrie. 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 Not if it is left untreated. The wounds are getting worse every day. Then, she should stop moving so much. Jiwon felt anger rising in his chest, but he kept his voice calm. Captain, Coalition Medical Code Section 12 states that all prisoners must receive treatment for infections, regardless of their species or crimes. I am formally requesting access to treat her wounds. Vok finally looked up. His 4 eyes studied Jiwon with something between annoyance and amusement. You are very persistent for such a small creature. I am her doctor. It is my job. My? No, Vok said. Your job is to keep the prisoners alive until we reach the penal colony. She is alive. Request denied. Jiwon left the office, but he did not give up. He submitted formal medical reports every day, documenting Rena's worsening condition. He quoted coalition regulations. He sent messages to the Medical Corps Oversight Committee. He made himself such a persistent annoyance that finally, after 2 weeks, Captain Vok called him back to the office. Fine, Vok roared. You may treat your monster, but you will follow my rules. 4 armed guards will be in the cell with you. The prisoner will be locked into wall restraints. Her primary shackles will remain active. You will have 10 minutes. If she makes any aggressive movement, the guards will kill her immediately. And if she kills you, I will put in my report that you were warned. Do you accept these terms? Yes, Jiwon said. The treatment was scheduled for the next day. Jiwon barely slept that night. He prepared his medical kit carefully, making sure he had everything he needed. Antibiotics that worked on multiple species, healing gel, clean bandages, pain medication. When the time came, Jiwon rode the elevator down to the lowest level. 4 guards were already there, along with Security Chief Thulm. Thulm was a massive crowbar who hated humans almost as much as he hated prisoners. The creature has been secured, Thulm said. You have 10 minutes. Do not waste our time. The cell door opened with a heavy mechanical sound. Jiwon stepped inside, and his heart clenched at what he saw. Rena was pressed against the back wall. Her arms were pulled above her head and locked into restraints built into the metal. Her legs were shackled to the floor. She could not move at all. 4 guards stood around her with weapons raised and ready. But what shocked Jiwon most was the fear in her eyes. Not anger, not hatred, just pure, terrible fear. She was breathing hard, her whole body tense, waiting for pain. Jiwon approached slowly. The guard's weapons tracked his movement, ready to fire if she made any hostile move. Rena, Jiwon said softly. It is me. Jiwon. I'm going to help you. I'm going to clean your wounds and give you medicine. It might hurt a little bit at first, but then it will feel better. Okay? She did not respond. Her eyes were locked on his face, searching for something. Truth, maybe. Or a reason to trust him. Jiwon opened his medical kit and showed her the supplies. This is antibacterial gel. And these are bandages. I am going to touch your wrist now. Is that okay? Still no response. But she did not pull away, even though she could not have moved even if she wanted to. Jiwon reached out slowly. His fingers brushed the metal shackle on her left wrist. The guards tensed. Thulm's finger moved to his weapon's trigger, and then something happened that no one expected. A sound came from Rena's throat. It was low and rumbling, like a vibration that Jiwon could feel through his fingertips. It was not a growl. It was not a threat. It was a purr. Every guard in the room froze. Thulm's eyes went wide. Outside the cell, the monitoring crew, watching through the cameras, stopped breathing. In all the documented history of Velkhari encounters, no one had ever heard this sound. Velkhari were berserkers, monsters, killing machines. They did not purr, but Rena was purring. Jiwon felt tears prick his eyes, but he blinked them away. He kept his voice steady and calm. Good. That is good. I am going to clean this now. He worked carefully, gently cleaning the infected wounds on her wrists. The purring continued, soft and steady. Rena's eyes slowly closed halfway. The tension in her body began to ease. For the first time since her capture, she did not look like a prisoner waiting for torture. She looked almost peaceful. Jiwon applied the healing gel and wrapped clean bandages around both wrists. Then, he moved to her ankles and repeated the process. The entire time, that soft purring sound continued. When he finished, Jiwon stepped back. All done. The medicine will help fight the infection. The pain should get better in a day or two. Rena's eyes opened fully. She looked at him for a long moment. Then, in a voice rough from not being used, she spoke. Thank you. 2 words, simple words, but they hit Jiwon like a physical force. Thulm recovered from his shock and barked orders at the guards. Get the human out. Lock down the prisoner. As Jiwon was ushered out of the cell, he looked back one more time. And even though she was chained to the wall, even though she was still a prisoner, something in her expression had changed. She looked less like a caged animal and more like a person. The door sealed shut. Jiwon stood in the corridor, still holding his medical kit. The guards were muttering to each other in disbelief. Thulm looked furious. What did you do to her? Thulm demanded. I treated her wounds, Jiwon said. Simply. Velkhari do not purr. They do not thank people. You did something to her. I showed her basic kindness. Maybe you should try it sometime. Thulm looked like he wanted to hit Jiwon, but he restrained himself. Captain Vok will hear about this. I am sure he will, Jiwon replied. As Jiwon rode the elevator back up, he thought about that purring sound. About the way Rena had relaxed when he touched her. About those 2 words, thank you. Everyone said the Valkyrie were monsters. Everyone said they were too dangerous to be treated as people. But Jiwan had just proven them wrong. With simple kindness, with basic medical care, with treating her like she mattered, he had gotten through to her. And if he could do that, what else might be possible? Back in her cell, Rena sat alone in the darkness. The shackles were back on her wrists, cutting into the fresh bandages. But for the first time in years, they did not hurt quite as much. She thought about the human's gentle hands, about his soft voice, about the way he had asked permission before touching her. Even though she could not have stopped him, a single tear rolled down her cheek. She had forgotten what kindness felt like. She had forgotten that anyone could touch her without wanting to cause pain. Maybe, she thought, not everyone in this galaxy was cruel after all. News of what happened in Rena's cell spread through the ship like fire. Some crew members thought it was fascinating. Others thought it was proof that Jiwan had done something wrong to the prisoner. But everyone had an opinion. Captain Vok called a meeting with his senior staff. Jiwan was required to attend. He stood in the briefing room, while Vok and the others discussed what to do. "The human made the Valkyrie purr," said Thulm, the security chief. "This is not natural. It must be some kind of trick. Or perhaps," said Borin, the ship's engineer, "we have been wrong about the Valkyrie." Borin was a Saltine, a species known for their curiosity and love of solving puzzles. He had watched the video footage from Rena's cell multiple times. "Wrong?" Thulm laughed. "They destroyed 3 worlds. They killed millions. That is what the records say." Borin agreed. "But records can be changed." Vok slammed one of his 4 fists on the table. "Enough. I do not care if the creature purrs or sings songs. She is a prisoner. She will remain a prisoner. And the human will follow proper protocols from now on. No more touching. No more talking. Remote medical scans only. Armang. Armang. 1. Jiwan spoke up. "Captain, I request permission to continue regular medical checkups. In person. Her wounds are healing, but they need to be monitored. Request denied. Then I will file a formal complaint with the Coalition Medical Oversight Board." Vok's eyes narrowed. "You are very bold for someone who could be thrown off this ship at the next station. The board takes prisoner medical rights very seriously, especially after the Corvan prison scandal last year. Do you really want them investigating this ship?" "I'm live." Well, there was silence. Everyone knew about the Corvan scandal. A prison facility had been shut down, and its captain arrested after medical neglect led to prisoner deaths. Vok did not want that kind of attention. "Fine," Vok growled. "Weekly checkups, but only to monitor the wounds. No conversations. No unnecessary contact." It was not everything Jiwan wanted, but it was enough. For now. After the meeting, Borin approached Jiwan in the corridor. "Walk with me," the engineer said quietly. They went to Borin's workshop, a cluttered room full of tools and spare parts. Borin closed the door and activated a privacy field. "You think there is more to the Valkyrie story?" Borin said. It was not a question. "Yes," Jiwan admitted. "Something does not make sense. If they were really just violent monsters, why did Rena react the way she did to simple kindness? Why does she seem more afraid than angry?" Borin nodded. "I have been thinking the same thing. So I did some research." He pulled up a holographic display. "These are the official coalition records about the Valkyrie War. 3 colony worlds destroyed, millions dead. The Valkyrie labeled as an aggressive species that needed to be eliminated for galactic safety. I have read those records, but have you read the classified records?" Borin's eyes gleamed with excitement. "The ones that require special clearance?" Jiwan felt his heart beat faster. "You can access those? I maintain the ship's computer systems. I have access codes that most people do not know about. And I found something interesting." Borin changed the display. New documents appeared, marked with high-level security seals. These are the original survey reports from those 3 colony worlds. They were filed before the war. Ji-won read quickly. His stomach turned cold. These worlds were already inhabited. By the Velkari. Yes, they were Velkari worlds for thousands of years. Then, mining corporations discovered valuable resources there. Rare metals needed for ship construction. Worth billions of credits. So the corporations wanted the planets. Correct. But they could not just take them. Coalition law protects inhabited worlds. So the corporations needed a reason to remove the Velkari. Borin pulled up more documents. These are incident reports, all filed by corporate security forces, not coalition military. They claim the Velkari attacked without provocation. But if the Velkari were defending their homes, then they were not aggressors. They were defenders. And the coalition used these corporate reports as justification for a peacekeeping operation. Borin's voice was bitter, which became a genocide. Ji-won sat down heavily. How many survived? Less than 1,000. Most were killed in the bombardment. The survivors who fought back were labeled as war criminals. They were scattered across the prison system, kept isolated, so they could never tell their side of the story. Rena was there. She saw it happen. Most likely. We should ask her. Vok will never allow it. Borin smiled. Then we will not ask Vok. Over the next week, Ji-won continued his daily visits to Rena's cell. He still talked to her through the intercom. Even though Vok had forbidden conversations, the guards reported him, but Vok seemed to have decided it was not worth the fight. Rena spoke more now. Just a few words at a time. Her voice was rough, like someone who had not used it in years. But she was trying. How do you feel today? Ji-won asked one morning. Better. Good. That is very good. A pause. Then Rena asked, why do you come here? Everyone else is afraid of me. I am not afraid of you. You should be. I have killed people. Ji-won chose his words carefully. Were you defending yourself? Or defending others? Rena's eyes widened slightly. What do you know? I know that the official story does not match what I see when I look at you. I know that someone who purrs when shown kindness is not a mindless killer. He paused. I know that those 3 worlds were yours first. Rena was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice shook. Who told you? A friend helped me find the classified records. The real records. Not the propaganda. Tears formed in Rena's amber eyes. No one has ever believed us. They all think we are monsters. Tell me what really happened. Please. So Rena told her story. She spoke slowly. The memory's painful. She had been young when the corporations came. They had offered to buy mining rights, but the Velkari Council had refused. The mining would destroy their sacred sites and poison their water. The corporations left. But they came back with mercenaries. They staged attacks and blamed them on the Velkari. They created evidence of Velkari aggression. They bought influence with coalition officials. Then the coalition ships arrived. They said they were there to protect the colonists. But there were no colonists yet. Only Velkari who had lived there for generations. The bombardment began without warning. Cities burned. Families died. Rena's parents had pushed her into an underground shelter before the building collapsed on them. She never saw them again. The surviving Velkari fought back. What else could they do? They used their natural strength and speed to resist. They destroyed the corporate equipment. They defended their homes. And for that, they were labeled as monsters. I was captured trying to protect children, Rena said quietly. Human children. The corporations had brought in workers, with families. When the fighting reached their settlement, I helped them escape. I thought if I saved them, someone would listen. Someone would care. She laughed bitterly. Instead, they put me in chains, said I was too dangerous to live among civilized species. Ji-won felt sick. I am so sorry. I am sorry for what they did to your people. You did not do it. But my species is part of the coalition now. We benefit from their rules and their systems. If we do not speak up when those systems are unjust, we are part of the problem. Rena looked at him with something like hope in her eyes. What can you do? You are one person. One human on a ship full of people who want to forget we ever existed. I do not know yet, but I am going to try to do something. I promise you that. That night, G1 met with Borin again. We need to expose this. The whole galaxy needs to know the truth about what happened to the Velkari. If we release classified information, we will be arrested. Possibly executed. I know. But it is the right thing to do. Borin thought for a moment. Then he nodded. I will help you. But we must be careful. Thulm has been watching you. He knows you have been accessing restricted areas of the database. Can you hide our tracks? For a while. But not forever. They made a plan. Borin would copy all the classified files about the Velkari. G1 would write a report explaining what the files proved. They would send everything to news organizations, human rights groups, and coalition oversight committees. But before they could act, Thulm made his move. He had been monitoring G1's computer access more carefully than they realized. He found evidence of the classified file searches. He reported it directly to Captain Vok. G1 was in his quarters when the guards came. They seized his computer and placed him under arrest. What are the charges? G1 demanded. Unauthorized access to classified information. Conspiracy. Possible espionage. Thulm smiled cruelly. You should have stayed in your place, human. Now you will face military justice. They locked G1 in a small cell on the security level. It was not as bad as Rena's cell, but it was still a cage. He had one small window that looked out at the stars. G1 sat on the hard bunk and thought about what would happen next. He had failed. He had tried to help Rena, tried to expose the truth. And now, he was a prisoner too. But then he thought about Rena's purr, about the way she had thanked him, about the hope in her eyes when he promised to try. Even if he failed, he had shown her that kindness still existed. In her cell far below, Rena stared at the monitors. She had limited access to the ship's internal cameras, just enough to see the corridors outside her cell. But she had learned to access more through a glitch in the system. She watched as guards dragged G1 to a cell. She heard Thulm's words. The human was arrested because he tried to help her, because he searched for the truth. Rena felt something she had not felt in years. Anger. Not the rage of a berserker, but the righteous anger of someone who had been pushed too far. G1 had shown her kindness. He had believed her. He had tried to help when no one else would. Now it was her turn to help him. Rena sat in her cell and thought about chains. She had worn them for so long that they felt like part of her body. The heavy shackles on her wrists and ankles, the restraints that connected to the walls, the suppression fields that weakened her natural strength. For years, she had accepted them. What choice did she have? Fighting back meant death. And if she died, the truth about her people died with her. She was one of the last Velkari who remembered what really happened. One of the few who could tell the real story. So she had endured. She had survived. She had waited for a chance that she thought would never come. But then G1 had arrived. A human who talked to her like she was a person, who touched her chains with gentle hands, who believed her when she told him the truth. And now he was locked in a cell because he had tried to help her. Rena made a decision. She had spent years being a good prisoner because she thought survival was the only option. But survival, without purpose, was just a slow death. If G1 was willing to risk everything for the truth, then she could do the same. She began to test her shackles. The guards thought they knew everything about Velkari's strength. They had designed the restraints to hold a healthy, well-fed Velkari warrior at peak condition. But Rena had not been fed properly in years. She was thin, weaker than she should be. The recent medical treatment had helped her heal, but she was still far from her full strength, which meant she was smaller, thinner, just flexible enough to possibly slip free if she was willing to endure enough pain. Rena waited until the middle of the night cycle when the guard rotation changed. She had memorized their schedule over the years. She knew exactly when she would have the most time before someone checked on her. She began with her left hand. Velkari joints were more flexible than most species, designed for climbing and fighting. Rena pressed her thumb against her palm as hard as she could, compressing the bone and muscle. Then she pulled. The pain was incredible. It felt like her hand was being crushed. The shackle scraped across her skin, tearing the bandages Jiwan had applied. Blood made her wrist slippery, and then her hand slipped through. Rena gasped, breathing hard. One hand free. She flexed her fingers, feeling the blood rush back. Then she used her free hand to work on the other shackle. This one was easier. With two hands to work with, she could create better leverage. Both hands free. Now the ankles. The ankle shackles were heavier and attached to the floor. But Rena was patient. She worked methodically, using her hands to bend and twist until she found weak points. The shackles were strong, but they were also old. They had held her for years without being replaced. Metal fatigue, microscopic cracks, weaknesses. One ankle free, then the other. Alarms began to sound. The sensors had detected that the restraints were no longer locked. Guards would be coming. Rena moved to the cell door. It was reinforced metal, designed to hold her. She could not break it down, but she did not need to. She pressed the intercom button. Her voice broadcast through the ship's communication system. I am Rena of the Velkari. I am not your enemy. I am not a monster. I am someone whose people were murdered for profit, whose story was erased, whose truth was buried. Footsteps pounded in the corridor. Shouts echoed. The guards were coming. Jiwan showed me kindness when your coalition showed my people only death, Rena continued. He treated me like a person. He listened to my story. He searched for the truth. And now you have locked him away for caring too much. For being too kind. Thulm's voice roared through the intercom. Silence, creature. Guards, prepare for full assault. But Rena was not finished. If you kill me, you prove that the strong will always crush the gentle. That kindness is punished. That truth does not matter. Is that the galaxy you want? She heard weapons charging outside her door. She heard Thulm ordering lethal force. Rena took a deep breath. Then she did something that shocked everyone watching through the cameras. She walked back to the wall. She placed her wrists back into the shackles. She locked her ankles back into the floor restraints. She made herself a prisoner again. I am not fighting you, she said quietly. I am choosing to trust that somewhere on this ship, there are people like Jiwan. People who care about truth. People who will listen. In the command center, Captain Vok watched the monitors in disbelief. What is she doing? Borin, who had been monitoring his engineering station, suddenly spoke up. Captain, I need to show you something. I have been reviewing the classified files about the Velkari. You what? Vok's eyes widened. Sir, the human was right. The official story about the Velkari is wrong. Those 3 worlds were theirs first. The mining corporations created false evidence of aggression. The coalition was manipulated into committing genocide. That is classified information. How did you access it? That does not matter right now, Borin said calmly. What matters is that this information has just been broadcast to every terminal on this ship. Everyone can see it now. Everyone. Vok spun to his communication officer. Cut the transmission. I cannot, sir. It is coming from multiple sources. Someone set up automated distribution before we locked down the humans' access. Jiwan, sitting in his cell, smiled. Before he was arrested, he and Borin had prepared a contingency plan. If G1 was locked up, Borin would activate an automated system that would release all the classified files throughout the ship. Now every crew member was seeing the truth. Documents, videos, testimony from Velkari survivors that had been suppressed, evidence of corporate corruption, proof that the coalition had been lied to. The ship's crew began to react. Some were angry. Some were confused. But many were disturbed by what they were reading. In the crew quarters, a young navigation officer named Hana spoke up in the common room. I joined the coalition because I thought we protected people. But we killed an entire species based on lies? Corporate lies, added another crew member, a weapons technician. The same corporations that profit from our prison contracts. The same ones that fund half the coalition's military operations. In the security bay, even some of Thulm's own guards were questioning their orders. One of them, a Krovar named Kelm, lowered his weapon. Chief, if the Velkari were defending their homes, does that make them criminals? They killed coalition soldiers, Thulm roared. Coalition soldiers who were attacking their cities, who were killing their families. Kelm looked at his weapon. I joined security to protect people, not to guard victims of genocide. Thulm's face darkened. You are relieved of duty. All of you. I will handle the creature myself. He grabbed a plasma rifle and marched toward Rena's cell. But when he arrived, he found G1 standing in his way. G1 had been released by sympathetic guards who had read the files. He was tired and disheveled, but his eyes were determined. You are not going to hurt her. 2. Move aside, human, or I will kill you both. No. You think you can stop me? I think you are going to have to shoot an unarmed medic to get past me. And every camera on this ship is recording. Everyone is watching. Do you really want them to see you murder someone who is just trying to protect a prisoner? Thulm's hands shook with rage. His finger hovered over the trigger. Behind him, more crew members were gathering. Hana was there, Borin, Kelm, and several other guards. Dozens of others. They did not say anything. They just stood there, watching, waiting to see what Thulm would choose. Captain Vok's voice came through the intercom. Thulm, stand down. That is an order. Captain, the creature escaped. She violated containment, and then she put herself back in restraints. She is not attacking anyone. She is not trying to escape. Lower your weapon. But sir, I said lower your weapon. I will not have a bloodbath on my ship. Because you cannot control your temper. Slowly, Thulm lowered the rifle. His eyes burned with hatred as he looked at G1. This is not over. Human. Yes, G1 said quietly. It is. Thulm left, pushing past the crowd. Most of his security team did not follow him. They stayed behind, unsure what to do. G1 walked to Rena's cell. She was still locked in the restraints, still sitting calmly. When she saw him, her expression softened. You are safe, she said. So are you. For now. But what happens next? G1 looked back at the crowd of crew members. At Borin, who gave him a small nod. At Hana, and the others who had stood up for what was right. I do not know, G1 admitted. But we are not alone anymore. People are listening. People are starting to understand. That has to count for something. Rena smiled. It was small and sad, but it was real. You showed me I could still trust. So I chose to trust the rest of your people to be like you. That was very brave. I learned it from you. You touched my chains when everyone else was afraid. You showed me that kindness still exists. She paused. I wanted to show others the same thing. In the command center, Captain Vok was receiving emergency transmissions. The files that Borin had distributed throughout the ship had also been sent to external sources, news organizations, coalition oversight committees, human rights groups. The story was spreading beyond the ship. Soon, the entire galaxy would know the truth about the Velkari. Vok sat heavily in his chair, His career was probably over. The ship would be investigated. Everything would change. But as he looked at the monitors showing Jiwan and Rena talking through the cell barrier, with dozens of crew members watching peacefully, he realized something. Maybe change was not such a bad thing after all. Maybe it was long overdue. The eternal verdict arrived at the penal colony 3 days later. But everything had changed. The ship that had left with 73 prisoners and a silent secret now carried a story that the whole galaxy was talking about. News organizations had picked up the leaked files. Coalition oversight committees had launched emergency investigations. And the human delegation to the Coalition Council had demanded immediate action. Captain Vok stood on the bridge, watching the space station grow larger on the view screen. He had received orders to hand over all prisoners as planned, including Rena. But he had also received orders to report to Coalition headquarters for questioning about prisoner treatment and classified information leaks. His career was over. He knew that. But strangely, he felt almost relieved. "Captain," Boren said from the engineering station, "we are being hailed by the station, but also by 3 Coalition oversight vessels, 2 human diplomatic ships, and approximately 40 news organization shuttles." Vok sighed. "Of course we are. Put the station commander through." The view screen changed to show a stern-looking Threxian official. "Eternal verdict. You are cleared to dock. However, all prisoners will remain aboard until Coalition investigators arrive. No transfers will take place until the investigation is complete." "Understood," Vok replied. The ship docked. Within an hour, Coalition investigators were boarding. They were led by a human woman named Minji, who wore the uniform of the Coalition Justice Department. She had sharp eyes and carried herself with quiet authority. "Captain Vok," she said, "I am here to review the treatment of prisoner 4719 and to investigate the classified information regarding the Velkari conflict. I will need access to all ship records, prisoner logs, and crew testimony." "You will have full cooperation," Vok said. Minji's team worked quickly. They interviewed crew members. They reviewed camera footage. They examined Rena's medical records and the conditions of her cell. They read through the classified files that Boren had distributed, and they talked to Rena herself. Jiwan was present when Minji entered Rena's cell. The restraints had been reduced on the investigators' orders. Rena now wore only basic security cuffs, enough to satisfy protocols but not enough to cause injury. "My name is Minji," the investigator said. "I am with the Coalition Justice Department. I am here to listen to your story. Everything you say will be recorded and used in the official investigation. Do you understand?" Rena nodded. "I understand." "Then please tell me, in your own words, what happened to your people?" Rena took a deep breath. Then she told her story again. But this time, it was not just to one kind human through a cell intercom. This time, it was official testimony. It was evidence. It was the truth being spoken into the permanent record. She spoke for over an hour. About her childhood on the Velkari worlds. About the corporations that came wanting to mine. About the refusal and the retaliation. About the false accusations and the bombardment. About watching her family die. About fighting to survive and being labeled a monster for it. Minji listened carefully. She asked questions. She took notes. And when Rena finished, she said something that made Rena's eyes fill with tears. "Thank you for your testimony. I believe you. And I am sorry for what was done to your people." Simple words. But they were words Rena had waited years to hear from anyone in authority. Over the next week, the investigation continued. More evidence came to light. Other imprisoned Velkari were located in different facilities and interviewed. Corporate documents were subpoenaed. Officials who had been involved in the original decision to attack were questioned. The truth became undeniable. The Velkari had been victims, not aggressors. The coalition had been manipulated into committing genocide by corporate interests, and the surviving Velkari had been imprisoned to keep them silent. The human delegation pushed hard for justice. Earth's representative to the Coalition Council, a man named Taman, gave an impassioned speech that was broadcast across the galaxy. "We humans are new to the stars," Taman said. "We have been part of the Coalition for less than a generation. We came here hoping to find a community built on justice and cooperation. What we have found is a system that can be corrupted by profit, that can be manipulated into destroying entire species. That labels victims as monsters to hide its own crimes." He paused, looking around the council chamber at representatives from dozens of species. "If this can happen to the Velkari, it can happen to anyone, including humans. We cannot allow this to stand. We demand a full accounting. We demand reparations for the surviving Velkari, and we demand changes to coalition law to prevent this from ever happening again." Some council members objected. They argued about jurisdiction and precedent. They worried about the cost of reparations. They insisted that the past should stay in the past. But others supported the human position. Species who had their own grievances with coalition policies. Smaller governments who feared corporate influence. Even some of the major powers who recognized that this scandal threatened the coalition's legitimacy. After weeks of debate, the Coalition Council voted. It was not unanimous, but it was enough. The Velkari genocide was officially recognized. All surviving Velkari prisoners were to be released and pardoned. Reparations would be paid from the corporate profits that had been gained from the mining of Velkari worlds. And new laws were passed to reform how the coalition treated supposedly dangerous species. G1 was on the station when the verdict was announced. He immediately went to find Rena. She was no longer in a cell. She had been moved to proper quarters while awaiting the council's decision. When G1 arrived, she was standing by a window, looking out at the stars. "It is over," he said softly. "You are free." Rena turned to him. Tears ran down her face, but she was smiling. "Free. I never thought I would hear that word again. What will you do now?" "Find the others. The other survivors. We will need to stay together, help each other heal." She paused. "And we will need to rebuild. Create something new from what was lost." "That sounds like a good plan." Rena walked over to G1 and did something that surprised him. She placed her hand on his shoulder. It was a gesture of trust, of friendship. "You saved me," she said quietly. "Not just my life. You saved my faith. That goodness still exists in this galaxy. You touched my chains when everyone else was afraid. You treated me like a person when everyone else saw a monster." Jiwan felt his eyes water. "You saved yourself. You chose to trust when you had every reason not to. That took more courage than anything I did. We saved each other then." "Yes, I think we did." In the following months, things changed across the galaxy. The corporations that had profited from the Velkari genocide faced legal action. Several coalition officials resigned in disgrace. New oversight committees were formed to prevent similar abuses, and the Velkari began to rebuild. A planet in a neutral zone was donated as a new homeworld. It was not their original home, but it was a start. 73 surviving Velkari were found in various prisons and released. It was a tiny number compared to the millions who had died, but it was enough to begin again. Jiwan resigned from the Coalition Medical Corps. He could not continue working for an organization that had caused so much pain. Instead, he joined the Velkari Remembrance Commission, a new organization created to document what had happened and to help the survivors heal. 6 months after the eternal verdict docked at the penal colony, Jiwan stood on the surface of the new Velkari homeworld. The settlement was small, just a few buildings and agricultural fields, but it was growing. Rena stood beside him, looking at the sky. "What are you thinking?" Jiwan asked. "I am thinking about my family. About everyone we lost. I wish they could see this. I think they would be proud of you, perhaps." Rena smiled. "I am also thinking about what you told me once. About Earth. about rain and grass and trees. Will you tell me more about your world? Of course, but I have a better idea. Why do not you visit Earth someday? See it for yourself. Oh, Rena's eyes widened. Do you think they would welcome me? A Velkari? I think they would welcome you as Rena. As someone who survived terrible things and chose kindness. Anyway, as a friend. A friend. Rena repeated the word softly. I like that. I like that. They walked together through the settlement. Other Velkari greeted them as they passed. Children played in the fields, the first Velkari children, born in freedom in over a decade. It was not perfect. There was still pain and trauma to heal. But there was also hope. That evening, Jiwan sat with a group of Velkari elders. They were discussing how to preserve their history, how to make sure future generations knew what happened, how to teach the truth so it would never be forgotten. We will need human help, one elder said, to tell our story to the galaxy, to make sure it is heard and believed. Humans will help, Jiwan promised. My people understand what it is like to be underestimated, to be seen as weak or too emotional. We know what it is like to have to fight to be taken seriously. Then we will work together. Velkari and humans. Building something new. Velkari. 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 And humans. Building something new. Later, as the twin moons rose over the settlement, Jiwan found Rena sitting alone near the edge of the fields. She was looking up at the stars. He sat down beside her. Are you all right? Number 4. Number 4. Ilix Pribe. Number 4. Yes. I am just thinking about how strange life is. A few months ago, I was in chains. I thought I would die in prison, alone and forgotten. And now, she gestured at the settlement. Now this. You deserve this. You deserve peace and freedom. So do you. You gave up your career for this. For us. Jiwan shrugged. I did not give up anything important. I found something better. Purpose. Friendship. The chance to help rebuild instead of just treating symptoms. Rena laughed softly. It was a sound that still surprised Jiwan every time he heard it. After so much pain, she could still laugh. What is funny? He asked. I was just remembering the first time we met. You put your hand on the glass of my cell. Such a simple thing, but it changed everything. You purred. I will never forget that sound. My people purr when we feel safe. When we trust someone completely. I had not purred in years. I thought I never would again. She looked at him. Thank you for giving me that back. Thank you for trusting me enough to try. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars. Somewhere up there, the galaxy was still dealing with the consequences of the Velkari revelation. Political debates, legal battles, corporate prosecutions. But down here, on this small planet, there was just peace. Your people taught the galaxy something important, Jiwan said after a while. That survivors are not broken. That even after terrible trauma, healing is possible. That forgiveness and rebuilding take more strength than revenge. Rena nodded. And your people taught me something too. That sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is reach out to someone everyone else fears. That kindness is not weakness. That one person caring can change everything. She placed her hand over his. It was a gesture of trust, of friendship, of hope. We are going to build something good here, she said. Something that honors those we lost and gives hope to those who remain. Yes, Jiwan agreed. As the night deepened, more Velkari came out to join them. They sat together under the stars, sharing stories and plans for the future. And for the first time in a long time, the Velkari did not look like victims or prisoners or monsters. They looked like people, like a community, like a species that had survived the unthinkable and was choosing to build something beautiful from the ashes. And Jiwan, the human medic who had touched the chains of a supposed monster and found a friend instead, knew that he was exactly where he was meant to be. The galaxy had tried to erase the Velkari, had tried to silence their truth, but one act of kindness had started a ripple that became a wave, and that wave had changed everything. Sometimes, the most powerful thing in the universe is not strength or weapons or technology. Sometimes, it is just one person choosing to be kind when everyone else chooses to be cruel. Choosing to listen when everyone else refuses to hear. Choosing to touch the chains that everyone else is afraid of. And that, Jiwan thought as he sat among his new family under alien stars, was what humanity could offer the galaxy. Not superior firepower. Not advanced technology. But the stubborn, foolish, beautiful belief that every person deserves dignity, that every story deserves to be heard, that kindness matters, even when the whole universe says it does not. Rena leaned against his shoulder, purring softly, and Jiwan smiled. Yes, he thought. This was exactly where he was meant to be.